Good morning. Let's see if this is going to work. Oh, there we are. I was beginning to think that I hadn't fixed anything. Oh, I forgot to shut my door. Hang on a minute. There. No more yelling from the peanut gallery. Good morning, Mike. Carol. Good morning, Diana. Ian. Oh, turn that off. Somebody sent me a note. Said, get rid of the echo a bit. Nope. Wasn't that. Nothing up my sleeve. Let me check on, see if I had any notes from Marcus. Don't know if he'll be here today. Last time I talked to him, he was going to be here, or he was going to try to be here. I'm checking my phone, guys. I'm not trying to be rude. Just bear with me a minute. But yesterday I couldn't get a hold of him. And he was feeling, last time I talked to him, I think was Tuesday. And he was feeling kind of rough. No, I don't see anything. So we'll see if he pops in. I sent him a link just in case. And that's okay. I didn't get as much. I don't have as much to talk about as I'd hoped to originally. Do have a little bit, and then I think it's going to be ad-libbed, squirrel chasing. In other words, you gonna get up and say hi? Huh? You gonna get up and say hi? Not yet. Not yet. Maybe in a little bit. Yeah, how's everybody? Who's got lots and lots of snow? Let's see. Mike might have snow, but he's not going to get lake effect. I don't think that Carol got lake effect, at least not this time. Tina's may or may not be in here. Now Tina's probably got snow. And Ian says snow's okay, but the cold temps are not. How much did you? I heard somewhere that you guys had snow. Ian, is that true? 5 inches. Okay, that's about. I guess that's about what I heard. And Buffalo area in New York had over 5 feet, so I don't know where that puts somebody like Tina. Yeah, 6 feet. Well, it's somewhere in that neighborhood, Mike. They were yesterday. Last I heard, they were getting 4 inches per hour, and then I heard they had 5+ feet. So there's probably areas where they have more than 6, and some areas where they maybe not have as much. But I don't know how that works. I don't know if it dumps it all right. I mean, they refer to it as lake effect because they get all that uplift and moisture off the water, and I don't know, whatever else it does. Not pulls that moisture out, all that cold air, but I don't know if that means it drops it right at the edge of the lakes. I mean, within a mile or two, and then it starts to peter out, or if it really goes way far inland. I think it goes pretty far inland, but I'm not sure how far it gets the most. I'm sure there's some kind of graduation. And Carol says they have about an inch on the ground. I think snow wise, we're probably at about negative, 20 or something. Boulder had almost a foot. That's sad. Can they get an artificial shoe for that or a prosthesis in? Oh, you mean the town Boulder? Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. Actually, that was crude. I apologize. Yeah, we got about 5 inches of sunshine. That's true. And why are you not going to be able to leave the house? Oh, 5 inches of sunshine. I couldn't resist, Ian. I'm sorry. It wasn't. That wasn't. You know, necessarily a good thing to say. It just popped in my head, which my head's kind of like that. I have to be careful what pops in. Don't pop out all the time. And the reason I'm a relief bear today is, like I said, about less than 2 hours ago, I thought everything was dead, killed. At least everything I had put together to discuss today. And finally, I rebooted my computer and walked away and came back, and at least some of it's working. But my camera was acting up until just a few minutes ago, and it's still acting up. For some reason, it won't work at a higher resolution. So if I'm fuzzy or blurry today, guys, Brenda, you got me distracted with dad joke talk. It'll only do resolution up to like 480. I usually shoot at 720, because I feel like it's probably goes out about as well as I can do it. And on my version of StreamYard, in other words, the cheap version, it won't let me do high def 1040 or whatever. Oh, somebody lost a foot in the Grand Canyon. What are you talking about? Oh, that's right. They found a foot, didn't they? Yes, Miss Brenda keeps up with some of the more morbid parts of our culture. And she was just telling me that yesterday, that she had heard somewhere that they had park rangers in the canyon had actually found a foot. And I'm not sure if they have any idea where it came from yet. So that's true. I mean, it's funny, but it's true. I mean, it's kind of funny, but it is true. Oh, I'm sorry. Hopefully that'll go away in a minute. Oh, how about anybody? Anybody out there sick? I'm not sick, but I've got my stuffy nose is kind of more badder, but worse today than normal. And I heard Brenda Hawk say like she was trying to hack up a lung a while ago, so I hope she's not coming down with something. Which is the case with Mark. When I talked to him, see, Mark has been gone. I'll just give you a little rundown of history or his whereabouts. He went home, if you will, to Ohio last week to go with his dad to the Marine Corps ball and cake cutting ceremony and all that. His dad was a Marine, whatever. Did 10 years in Vietnam and that kind of thing. He's that age Marine. So anyway, Mark started going home, every year to do that with him. And while he still can, I guess. Yeah, that foot thing is a true story. Anyway, so he went home, and as he described it to me, there he was in heat and humidity, worse than Wyoming, much worse than Wyoming, surrounded by a bunch of little walking petri dishes full of viruses and bacteria and all kinds of things. So he came home with the epizootic, and man, he sounded bad the other day. I actually felt sorry for him. I mean, I hate when I'm that way. And I could tell he was absolutely miserable. and we didn't even stay on the phone very long, which for us is kind of an unusual thing. Usually when we get on the phone, we're on there for a while. Mike has a question, Brenda. I don't know if you know the answer to this. Did they find the rest of the body, or are they? Now that's funny, Mike. Putting the lost and found. I don't think it said. Brenda, did it say whether it had a shoe on it? Because that might, somebody might want it back more if it had a good shoe on it. Yes, it is, Brenda. It's not really funny, but it is kind of funny if like if it's not your foot, I guess. Oh, Diana, it's okay. he gets to cut loose every once in a while. What you got to do, Mike, is look in that lost and found box and see if there are more. If the rest of the body might be in there. Maybe they lost it first and then lost the foot. Sorry, guys. That's okay, Mike. Jiminy. I thought it was a good one, as some people down here would say. As I would probably say on certain days and times. And while I'm thinking about it, congratulations to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers for making it to the Grey Cup this weekend. And I can't remember who they ended up playing, Mike. Do you know? I mean, do you remember? I saw that game, I thought. No, that's the one I caught the tail end of and missed most of it. And I don't remember who did win that. That was the Stampeders versus. No, it was the Argonauts versus the Alouettes, wasn't it? And the Argonauts won. So it's Argo versus Blue Bombers. I have a little bit of an attachment to the Argonauts. That's where Condridge Holloway played when he was up there, I think. I know he took them to one Grey Cup. He was an alumnus of the University of Tennessee, like myself, but way back in the mid to late 70s, I guess. I think I was out of high school when he played here. And there was something else I wanted to remember today. Let me think a second. Something else about this week. Oh, I know. The story that's on everybody's mind, and take my glasses off for a minute in case this brings tears. I know everybody's really worried about this. I'm not sure, and we're not sure yet what the latest news is, but it is rumored that some people may not get to go to the Taylor Swift concert. Yep, people, it does look like the Ticketmaster / live. What is it? Live something. Ticket system has failed us common people again by allowing racketeers and scalpers to buy up all the tickets in like record time, and then none of her true fans got tickets, at least not at I can't say affordable price, because I don't think ticket prices are affordable anywhere anymore for anybody. But There's certainly been a lot of upset people. Yeah, Mike, I thought about you because I thought, sure as the world, you and Diana might want to come down for that. And buddy, I'm sorry I can't get you a ticket. Uh, you've been thinking on that, Brenda. She's still working on the dad jokes here about that lost and found box. Yeah, that lost and found box probably has to sit outside, but you'd have to cover it up by the Grand Canyon, or the ring-tailed cats would be into it, and all kinds of other critters. And then, you wouldn't want the foxes or the coyotes to get foot and mouth. Blump, blump. This show prolonged due to illness in my basement. What are you trying to say about me or who? Teddy's not sick. Are you sick, Teddy? Oh, me. That's a. I'm obviously making fun of it because it's kind of hilarious how upset people get over that. But I do agree. There is something wrong with that system, and it's just like tickets for a lot of other things. But since it's Taylor Swift and whatever her new, I guess this is her new album tour or whatever. But it could be lots of other musicians. I'm sure the Elton John concerts, final ones here at the end, have been horrible about this. They really should do something about that, because there's already tickets online for like $25,000 and $32,000 each, and that's absolutely ridiculous. Mike says, so the U.S. election is pretty much over for midterms, just waiting on. Yes, that is correct. That is correct, Mike. That's right, Brenda. Why did you just pick up on the Conridge Holloway thing? Brenda's maiden name's Holloway, but her father would probably espouse no relationships, and I'm not even going to go there. So that's right, Mike. We're waiting on Georgia and heavenly days. I hope we get somebody that can string two words together. Brenda. Now this is my Saturday morning fun chat. Be careful there. You could be treading on deep waters. I don't know, Diana. I mean, I'm sure I can't say nobody does, because they probably do. I mean, it's like playoff game tickets for hockey in the Great or the Stanley Cup or something like that. I mean, people will pay a lot of money to get seats in some of those events, but the only people that could pay that price are absolute richest and the most famous, I suppose. And I could care less if they got to go or not. I mean, I don't mean that. That sounds horrible, but I mean, they can afford to do it, so it wouldn't make any difference. But all the other people that can't afford to do it, now whether anybody ever pays that much, I would love to know if anybody eventually pays that kind of money for those tickets. In some states down here, that's illegal. You can't even do that. You can't scalp tickets. You're not allowed to sell them over, seat value, which is, I'm sure it takes all the fun out of it for those guys, because they're in it to make money. Well, no, me either, Diane. I can't imagine having that kind of disposable income. First off, we were in high school when he played there, because I went on a trip with my agriculture blast to see a game. Oh, Conridge Holloway, you mean? So we were in high school then. I got you. When you said he, I don't know if you meant Elton John or talking, concerts or what. I mean, Diana, think about that. That's pretty ridiculous I mean, if it's, I don't know. I'd have to tell my kids that I'll buy you the DVD when it comes out of the concert or something. Live Nation, that's them. Which is not, I mean, in some ways that doesn't surprise me because Live Nation got involved in something like that, I think, a few years ago. They've been around for a while because they used to have all the rights for the Supercross series down here, the indoor motocross events. And seems like they got in some kind of trouble over that too at one time. I know it was kind of a pain that they had all the rights that kept anybody else from being able to broadcast them. You couldn't see the races on TV or hardly anything back then. So that's all kind of changed now. But I'm not sure. But it almost seems like it's because Live Nation got in trouble over that, monopolizing that or something. And it sounds to me like they're doing the same thing with Ticketmaster, which, in case you don't know, they own now. I guess they have for a little while. Back to Brenda's point there, I'm going to throw this out there, even though I don't want to, get started on that too deep. But it is kind of a shame. I almost feel sorry for. Oops, wrong text comment. I almost feel sorry for Herschel. I mean, he was a really good football player in his day, but I feel bad because he took the chance, I guess, but somebody has put him up to run for that office because they probably thought he could win it, and I just don't think he's prepared for that. He is having trouble with his thought process. I mean, for all we know, he could have brain damage from playing football all those years back. We don't talk about those guys, but those are the ones that are. A lot of those guys are the ones that are in trouble today. And I'm not saying that's his problem or anything. I'm just saying you never know. So I don't know. That's all we got left to wonder about, and then we just have to deal with it for the next couple of years at least. We'll see how things go. I think it's going to be a bumpy ride. Nothing will get done, I'm afraid. Although, I'm going to be honest, Nancy, like her or not, Nancy Pelosi was a powerful name and person in the Senate, the House. And I really appreciated the fact that she commented on the fact that she believes we need to move in some new blood. And I think so too. I think politicians have gotten a bit stale. And just to be honest, they used to say reelecting and reelecting your senators or your congressmen, let them build up clout and esteem in the office of in the Congress. But I don't know if that's a good thing anymore, or is a thing. There may be a past due date, and I'm sorry, but I think some of these guys have probably hit it. I mean, they've just gotten so set in their ways that they are just absolutely not willing to discuss anything. And I think there's a lot of younger people out there that probably straddle both sides of that political fence that might be able to talk about it and maybe get along a little better. Anyway, that's a whole topic by itself. Let's see here. Time. Who sang that song? Pink Floyd. They did a song, didn't they? No, times have changed. You need younger politicians. I agree, Diana. I think for one thing, the younger generation, I believe, at least some of them, have a whole different idea about the environment and what we might ought to do to help protect it. They have much more open views about, well, gay marriage and things like that. They're much more tolerant of that sort of thinking. And now, Ian, who said you could take, if you're going to go off out of the chat here, you need to let us know and, get approval. And if Carol comes back in here, I'll have her get you sign a note for you to be out in the hall. How about that? I don't think you've missed anything yet. I was still kind of hanging loose, hoping Mark might make it in, but I don't think he's going to. I know there's a lot of people out there that will disagree with me, but I think there are politicians in there since they've been around since about 1994. Now, that sounds like a really long time ago. But from then on up for the next few years, there was a real movement to push, particularly conservative or Republican politicians, to sign this document that was created by some conservative contributor to most of them. And it was also driven by some politicians at that time to sign this document that basically swore you wouldn't do anything to increase taxes or do certain things. And they were all Republican Party platform type planks. And you don't hear about that anymore, but I'm not so sure that thought process isn't still driving some of these folks. Yeah, and you do it. That's right. You better do a better job about that. Better. You need to work on that. Okay, and I'll write it down this time. And if you do better rest of the day, I'll mark it off. Oh my, Ian. Okay, well, I'm gonna start talking about something. I'm gonna try to anyway. Let me see if I can remember how to do all this stuff again. Okay, let's get this ready here. I didn't get as much done. Like I said, I had a computer problem this morning, and it didn't allow me to finish up some things I had wanted to do. So I'll do the best I can, and then we'll just chat till my butt gets too sore to stay any longer, which it's working on. Okay. From the beginning, a 1 and a 2 and a 2 and a 3. Oh, I meant wrong button. Share the screen. Dun, dun, dun. There we go. I wanted to do a little sort of a PSA, and it's hang on a minute, guys. I'm tripping under my own feet here. I have a little stool down here with a foot warmer on that sometimes I need for my feet when they're hurting. And funny, numb feet would hurt, but they do. They get cold. Problem is, I guess they don't feel until they're real cold. Anyway, so I was going to do two things. I was going to try to do a little bit of follow up on some things we talked about last week, but I wanted to do this thing about helium because a friend of my buddy Phil's a few years ago took us on a tour of his MRI facility, and he started talking to us and explaining about the world shortage of helium. And it's not something you hear much about, but there is such a thing. And so I just thought I'd talk about that for a few minutes. And I have another reason too. The balloons are an issue. The balloon releases and stuff are an issue to me because they're a wildlife hazard. So I use this, this up balloon. And that's a real balloon, by the way. If you can't see it, but if you find that picture on the internet, there's a man standing in that window right there. They actually built this thing to fly that houses the gondola. And I don't know if there's one single large balloon in the middle of that cluster or if they're all small. It's kind of neat in its own way. I really liked the movie Up, but it was really sad at the beginning. So anyway, I wanted to talk just a few minutes about helium, and don't laugh because this is actually real. And please consider hitting the like button if you're in here and subscribing to the channel if you find anything interesting. And by all means, leave a comment. Apparently, those things help YouTube promote the channel. Not that I'm really worried about promoting the channel, but who knows? It might be a good thing someday. And I wouldn't mind getting the word out a little further. Anyway, thank you for that. Now, helium. What do we know? Well, I've listed 5 of the most kind of common Michael and Bella's Travel Channel. Good morning, Michael and Bella's Travel Channel. Welcome. Well, looking at your logo, I have to ask: Is Bella your wife or your dog? Either way, that's okay. A few years ago, I couldn't get balloons filled because there was such. Yeah, I'm honestly surprised that we can do that now. But anyway, let me read through these, and we'll come back to that, Diana. Balloons. I wrote this and then mixed it up, so if it sounds out of order or something, please forgive me. It means I just didn't get it corrected. But one of the most common uses that we think of is for decorative balloons, for birthdays and special events and things like that. But since we started doing that, it stretched the helium. Oh, we've moved on. Besides balloons, we do helium for airships and weather balloons and things like that. Those are all uses for helium. And fun or not so fun fact is hydrogen was used to fill balloons, but it is highly reactive. In other words, it's extremely flammable, as those who were aboard the Hindenburg discovered. And there's a lot of medical applications. To me, these are probably the really important ones. They use liquid helium. I put helium gas, but that's not. Well, they use helium gas and respirator to treat certain asthmatic and emphysema patients. But liquid helium is probably one of the biggest uses, and they use it to cool down the magnets and the superconductors that are inside MRI and NRM scanners and MMR spectrometers. And this is where I ran into it. Like I said, this friend of mine, or friend of Phil's, started on the ground floor really of MRI machine technology, and has been working with them ever since. And he has to try to do everything he can to save every ounce of his helium in their machines because it's so hard to get now, and it has gotten so much more expensive. And just like everything else, we pay those expenses when we go to have an MRI done, or our insurance does if we have any. In the car and vehicle industry, it's often used to detect leaks in air conditioning systems that reacts in a different way. And it also inflates the airbag. Most of the airbags we have are helium filled, which is something we don't really even think about. And Surf John said, "What? I didn't know John was in here." And where did he say this? I tell him, Brendan, I find balloons all the time. Yeah, I'm going to come to that, John. I thank you for mentioning that. they're oh, tell your dad we said happy birthday, John. That's good to hear. I hope he's doing well today. John makes a really good point, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. Barcode scanners work with laser beam of all sorts, as uses helium in their and how they work. I'm not sure exactly what they do with it in those, but it's probably more in the laser function than it is, free air type thing. And then we use it for deep sea diving. So if a person is going to go down below a certain depth, they need up to 80% helium in the oxygen system so they can breathe. Hey, Kay Atwood, good morning. And welcome back, Carol. I don't know if you just got here. I know you've been here, but I don't know if you just got back. So anyway, that's five of the common things about that make it important. Let me see if I did this right. Okay, here's what do we really know about helium? It is considered the second most abundant element in the universe, but that's not here on Earth. That's just in the universe, and that covers a lot of territory. Even though it is in the universe, most of it is tied up in the Earth's atmosphere. It bleeds off into space. Helium is used for industrial purposes as a byproduct of natural gas production. And the Texas Panhandle is the United States helium capital. I didn't realize that, but I should have thought about that because I knew kind of where it came from. And it comes off natural gas fields. So if they tap into a natural gas well or pocket, at least some of the times they can tap helium off the top of that. And that's where we get it. That's where everybody in the world gets it in their own respective ways. And because of that, and where it's common here, the U.S. government maintains a helium storehouse out in the Panhandle of Texas, and that is because that's the closest place where it's at, so you don't have to move it, and they can keep it out there. And I assume that's underground. I don't really know. They didn't go into a lot of detail about that. And they built that back in 1925 because natural gas produced, the gas fields between Amarillo and Hugoton, I don't know how to pronounce that, Kansas. And that area has the gas in those areas has a very high percentage, but it's still only 1.9%, so it's not a lot. Let's see. Some other countries do produce helium. We produce the most. But then it's scattered around the world, and if you're interested, you can look up, there's the government store and all that near the storehouse in Amarillo under the federal helium program. And it's kind of interesting. I've read and heard, I don't know now if they still say this, but during World War I, but that building up to World War II, the United States and its allies and other countries that were not lined up with the Axis powers, Germany and her allies, their allies, we hoarded and protected what helium we had. And there was a couple of reasons for that. One, we just didn't want them to be able to use it and exploit it, like in the Hindenburg case, which forced the Hindenburg people to use nitrogen, which is like, very common element and lighter than air, but it's extremely flammable. And that's what led to the Hindenburg explosion in Lakehurst, New Jersey. And, it was such a god awful catastrophe at that time. And, but one of the other reasons is because helium was also used in nuclear enrichment. And at that time, as we were working to discover that technology, so were the Germans. And we didn't really want them to have it either, because they were concerned about Hitler, building the bomb. Even back at that point, I'm not sure when we actually started working on the bomb, but I'm sure it was somewhere in that neighborhood because that didn't happen just overnight. So here's some of the information, and this map here on the center left kind of shows that where the U.S. Helium Reserve is, and just a couple of things we use it for. But I put a few more pictures in here of just everyday occurrences that are using it that we may have to find, another way to do it. And like I said, deep sea diving isn't used now. In the shallow water diving, they don't use helium, but leak detection, in this case, they're checking a high pressure, I think, natural gas line and using helium to check that because helium won't react with the natural gas and cause a fire and explosion. Welding, a lot of welding uses helium as an inert gas shield, although you can also use nitrogen for that, which is much more plentiful. And there may be a couple other things you can use for that. Now, I'm not sure. Well, argon, which is not super plentiful, but I'm not sure if we can produce it. What I didn't know about helium was we cannot produce helium. I thought we could make it, draw it out of the air, so to speak, but we can't do that. All the helium in the universe was created via explosions like the Great Big Bang or from nuclear reactions on stars like the sun. So we don't really have a steady supply here on good old planet Earth. And of course, we do use it for certain things in the space missions. That's the shuttle, but we know that's gone. And these charts up here just kind of show you, different uses and how it's changed a little bit since 2016 to 2021. You can see the biggest chunk of the pie is for MRI and medical uses and welding, breathing, which is not much. They do use it for some treatments mixed with other things. I'm not sure if lifting includes balloons like you buy at Disney World, or if that's under other over here. So, but I'm not positive. They didn't break this down well enough for me. I wanted to know. I wanted to get a better percentage on what just party balloons and things use. And here's a picture but just showing the coils of an MRI machine, but it's two different kinds. One uses more liquid helium, and this one over here uses liquid helium, but in a different way to cool the coils. And I don't know if I'm sure there's one that's more efficient than the other, or the ones I know about are the ones like on the left. And back to what I said about helium being the second most abundant element in the universe is but roughly 24%. Hydrogen, not nitrogen, I'm sorry, makes up 75% of that. And everything else is 1%. But nitrogen is very common too here, and we can draw nitrogen out of our oxygen, or the air we breathe. And this is just it's unbelievable, the technology and how far we've come with things like MRI scans today and what they can find. That's going to be an important thing down the road. And of course, about everybody in here has seen the Goodyear blimp before. I've ridden in one. Just a little fun fact. Now let's go to why they're bad. This is one of the things that bothers me about balloons, and this goes back to what John was talking about. And hey, Dave, Adventures by D is here. Good morning, sir. Examples of big balloon releases was there's like 1.5 million balloons. I didn't put all that in there. Released at Balloon Fest 1986 in Cleveland, Ohio. That's a lot of helium-filled balloons. And roughly 1 million per year are released, and at least 250,000 of those million that are released and lost every year, at least a quarter of them, 250,000 or more, end up in the oceans. And basically lost balloons kill wildlife. And this little chart here, and this stuff, if you're interested in any of this, and I know I'm sorry, it's boring as hell. I've got the rivet video though, if you'd like to watch some more of that. Give us some examples of what happens. Birds of prey can swallow one. Tortoises, box turtles can swallow them. Ducks, fish, and other wildlife can get tangled up in them. That's some of the examples over here. And they do necropsies on dead animals often to see what's going on. And plastics are a huge concern now, and plastics that are harmful to us and wildlife. And so balloons are just another one of the commonly found items they find in stomachs. Just so we can play around with a balloon or buy a fancy balloon at Disney World, which I like too. But you think about how many of them get set loose and lost every day at Disney World, it's probably quite a few. And those aren't counted in the number lost. This goes back to kind of what John was saying a minute ago, and I didn't realize I'd put that little quote in there twice. I'm losing it, folks. These are some folks that do beach cleanups, and this is just I can't remember what they said, but this was a small area, and they picked up this pile of balloons just in one morning. And these pictures over here are basically similar to the other. There's a deer with balloons tangled around its antlers. There's a calf that choked on a balloon. Seals, again, entanglements with birds. That's an osprey chick there. And we hear the term biodegradable latex, but it's still hazardous and it still lasts a long time. It just means that before the next ice age, they may disintegrate. I kind of like this poster, just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water, balloons. And there you got three apex species in their crowd. They're areas of the ocean that are affected by them: sharks, sea lions, seals, big sea turtles. And then I was going to follow up on something else. Mike had asked about, follow up on, they have paused the long tradition of the hundreds of balloon releases this year at the Indy 500. Yeah, I thought they did, Dave. And I think that all speaks to this because it is a problem. It doesn't seem like it when we release a bunch of balloons and say at the Indianapolis 500. I'm sure most people there think, oh, we just do it here. What can it hurt? Or these balloons just flop into the sky and burst and fall back down. But it's not that simple. For one thing, they go up and hit the jet stream, and who knows where they're going to land. And it really is a problem. And there's a whole new study field, I think, about microplastics and things in water. So, everything we use that's plastic tends to break down, and they're finding it in the oceans now. That's just including balloons and things. So plastics are not the miracle material we were once told they were, or have now discovered they are. And that's an Arctic tern up there pulling that balloon along. It's tangled up around its wings, looks like. Okay, so I was going to follow up just a little bit about the events from last week, and this is where I got sidetracked today. So I didn't get as much of this done as I'd wanted to because my stuff wasn't working. And hang on just a moment. And I can't find my cursor. Nope. All right. never how it works. Mike had mentioned this. It'd be interesting to follow up what happened to like the Montford Point Marines. So I started looking into that a little bit more, and I didn't spend enough time on it, Mike, and I apologize for that. I should to do more research than I got done, and that's partly because I didn't think about it this week when I should have and had time, and then I didn't finish it last night or this morning to get it done. So, but I did look up to see, who might be following up on some of this information. And like I said last week, the Montford Point Marines were the first African Americans to officially enlist in the U.S. Marine Corps. Now I found a chart that kind of listed any African American combat roles or I'm not sure, not enlistment, but of African Americans in the United States. And there was actually, the first one was in 1776, actually. And there was a black man who was a slave of somebody in Maryland, and basically a captain of a ship offered him a job kind of on board the ship they were on because they needed some more Marines to do an attack. They were going to attack a British outpost of some sort. It gave the information. I just don't remember the detail. And so they actually got him to go along with them, and he fought with the Marines at that battle. He was not an official Marine. And, Marines back then, Marines got started by being combat troops, basically, that traveled aboard ships to protect the ships from pirates and to do other things. And of course, in times of war, they boarded ships and got off on land and fought and that kind of thing. And so that's what he did. I can't remember his name either, but it's all out there. I think if you look up the Montford Point Marines, I think it lists that, gives that timeline. So, and this association that this pendant flag over here shows has a lot of information about the Montford Point Marines, and I looked them up as much as I could, but I didn't actually get into enough detail, I guess, to see how well they could be tracked. Diana, that's a good question. I'm sorry I didn't mean to move on before I check questions, but I'd like to know because they certainly do pump up a lot of balloons. And the other thing about that is, I don't know if you know how this happens or not, but helium escapes from balloons, not necessarily through where they're tied or the strings attached, but just through the balloon material. And we consider, that latex or whatever on a balloon to be airtight. But helium molecules are so small that given just a few days, they will basically leak through the material of the balloon and out into the atmosphere, and it's gone. Which is why you see your balloons, if your party balloons getting smaller and smaller and eventually drooping and hitting the floor because all the helium is leaked out. Now, the foil type, what's the term for that? Not cellophane, mylar or whatever balloons. I think they hold helium longer if it doesn't leak out the tie, because I don't think they seal up as well around the knot. But my point here is Disney blows up hundreds, if not thousands, of balloons every day for their vendors to carry out into the crowd to sell. And I don't know how they keep them up, because they're going to leak down overnight if they don't. They're going to start leaking down overnight if they don't sell them. So they must have a way to refresh them. So my point there is they've got to be putting more in them every day, as well as blowing up new ones, because you couldn't just fill one up and leave it, because in a couple of days you're going to be selling, flat balloons to kids, and that's not going to blow up very big. So I'd say it's quite a bit. And not just them. I mean, most of those amusement parks and theme parks sell helium balloons. So anyway, that's a little bit more, and that is an address or a link down here about the Munford Point Marine Organization, or .org, which is the association. I thought I would follow this up. The association is committed to recognizing and honoring those Marines who fought in the Second World War and who fought for their right to fight first, and then went out and showed that they would and could fight, so that Marines could continue, and it has been a long tradition now since then. And this is a copy of a document of recognition for a Munford Point Marine who's passed away, and I don't know if these were war casualties or just afterwards. And this medal up here that you can see in the background, and actually they show it here on the front of the that placard or plaque, is a gold medal. That was a unit gold medal, they called it, that was given out to all those Marines at Munford Point Marines at that time for their duty in World War II. And here's something else I thought was kind of neat. There's going to be they're trying to do a movie, and as far as I know, this hasn't happened yet. But it's going to be a documentary or a feature film. Well, they've talked about both, so I'm not sure exactly. But it's going to tell the story of the Munford Point Marines and their facility out over there in Jackson, North Carolina. I think that should be pretty interesting, actually. I've signed up for that. When it comes out, I may try to get a copy of that. And this is another thing they're doing for memorial site for those Marines. They're selling bricks, kind of like Disney World did. And I don't know if these are the actual prices or if these are for like plaques on the wall. But there are some prices here for, if somebody was going to buy one for a fallen Marine or someone who's passed away. And this may be for any of those Marines considered Munford Point Marines that trained there and were the first ones in the Marine Corps, can have a brick here. And this is what, it basically looks like. And then I wanted to do a little bit more about the 442nd Battalion and kind of do the same thing, but I couldn't find an organization like the one that the Marines had. I did pick up a couple of things that I thought were interesting. One, I thought it was odd that their logo has a steamship on it, a paddle wheel steamship, but I got to reading more about that, and the go for broke thing was actually originally a gambler's term for, put it all in there and we're going to go for all or nothing kind of thing, which is where it's said is basically where their slogan came from, their whole go for broke attitude. And this is a burial site, a cemetery that's federally protected. It is a national cemetery, but it's a really small one, and this is in Arkansas. I don't think I put the map for this, but this was the site of one of the Japanese internment camps during World War II. The California Japanese Americans were from California, Washington, Oregon. Anybody that lived on the West Coast were rounded up and taken to these camps, and this is halfway across the country. Is where this camp was. And now, if you look close there, you can see it's surrounded by ag fields, but there is a small cemetery there. And that monument that you see in the top picture is for soldiers that fought and that possibly came from this because this internment camp, because they went through the camps, and a lot of the volunteers for the 442nd, they were all American Japanese, or Japanese Americans, excuse me. And they basically volunteered and came out of these camps. So their parents and families were imprisoned, basically, in these concentration camps. And actually, we call them that in documents. And they wanted to prove that they were Americans. So they went and fought and were quite heroic in that action. I mean, they felt like they had to prove that they were true Americans. So they went for broke, basically. So this is just one thing that's where some of them can be, I guess, put to rest. Nope, I keep getting notes, but none of them are for anybody I'm looking for. And let's see here. I've got, and this is new, or this is fairly new. It's obviously, it appears to me to exist. But this is a 442nd Regimental Combat Team. I mentioned this last week. It was the most decorated unit for its size and the length of service in the entire history of the U.S. military, any U.S. history, or all U.S. history, not just recent. Let's see if I'm missing the emails here. I visited the site of an internment camp in the hills outside of L.A. Very sad part of our history. Yes, it is, then. Or was, is, however you want to look at it. Anyway, there were 4,000 men initially taken into this group of the Japanese Americans. And they were basically came in 1943 and went into combat. They were replaced. In other words, they had to rotate wounded or dead out and replace them with new soldiers 3.5 times. So that basically means that about 14,000 Japanese Americans served. And out of that 14,000, nearly 9,500 of them got Purple Hearts. There were 21 Medals of Honor and 8 presidential unit citations, which was also unprecedented. So, I mean, they really served their country well. And I think we probably owed them a lot more than we gave when they came home, because we didn't show any great honor from our part. And I know at the time and war is happening and it's hard to make those kind of judgments sometimes, but even back then it was very controversial. A lot of people, some of the people who were involved with making it happen didn't really want it to happen, but I guess you had to try to please. Let's try this again. Me. Please everybody. So I guess this happened, but it was sad. And I think that's the only other slide I had. I still want to look at this, Mike. I'm going to try to dig a little bit deeper and see what else I can come up with, because I believe there's more out there. I want to believe there's more out there about, how, if anybody's kept up with these men, if anything's been done to document their time and what happened to them afterwards. And there's others too. I mean, there were other African American groups that fought quite heroically, and my mustache is really goofed up. And were also honored and decorated at pretty high rates. And anyway, that was just a little bit more follow up from last week. So if you didn't see last week's show, I'd suggest, and you're interested in that sort of thing, go back and look. I put some more information about their activities in combat. I wanted to try to find more about what happened to them. One of the problems with the Korean or the one of the problems with the Japanese American group is they were disbanded after the war as a separate unit and basically merged into other military groups. And so that the 442nd kind of disappeared. And combat infantry or combat battle, whatever they were called, combat infantry team or whatever it was. And so they were assimilated into other groups. And of course, after the war, I think at least some people realized, the mistake we'd made in that regard, and knew they were good soldiers. And kind of the same thing happened with the Munford Point Marines. That group, once I think it was Harry Truman signed in 1948 that to end segregation in the military, supposedly. I think those groups, like the Munford Point Marines, were basically worked in amongst the others, and that group was dissolved. But there's a lot more. There seems to be a lot more effort right now to keep awareness of them around than I could find initially on the Japanese. So I don't know how that'll happen. I didn't get to looking up like the women who served and the other, like the Army, the military groups of the Army who fought, not just the Army, especially before they integrated them. Most of the time, if you're an African American and you joined the Army or the Navy, you got sent to some place where you could cook, move supplies, or load ordnance on the ships, and which was another tragic thing that happened during World War II, was the explosions that happened off of the coast. I think that was in Washington, or was it Oregon? And but it was Port. I don't know. The name always made me think it was in California, but I don't think it was. Anyway, most of the men who died there, which was quite a few, were African Americans, because that's who we had loading all the ships, and the safety regulations weren't up to snuff, and just bad things happen. So there's a lot of follow up that can be done in that regard, and hopefully over time we're trying to make up for some of that. I don't think you can go back and fix everything that we did wrong, but we can certainly learn how to say we're sorry and try to not make up for it. We can't make up for it. It happened. But we can certainly admit it happened and recognize the fault of it and try to work through it in that way instead of just ignoring it or pretending it never happened. And I'm preaching here, so I'm going to stop and move back over here to the chat. So Ian, I was going to say that one, since Ian brought up a good point, he'd been to a side of an reenactment camp. I was going to ask him what was left there. The one I just showed you that was in Arkansas where the cemetery was, that's pretty much all that is left of it. All the other part of the camp was knocked down and plowed up, and it's now ag fields, crops, except for that little cemetery area, and even it's fallen into some disarray. And it's supposed to be a national cemetery, and there's a lot of concern about how much it's deteriorating and the fact that it probably needs some help. So we'll see how that goes in time. I think that would be the next great insult if we really and truly let the cemeteries for those fallen soldiers, or for that matter, those interned, if they passed away and were buried there, them either for that matter, we owe them that much, and their families. So anyway, any questions? If anybody has a question, if I can answer it, I will. If I can't, I'll say I can and dance around be like a prophet. Hey, buddy, you want to hop up here? Hey, Miss Carol's back. You want to come up here and say hi? Come here. Come up here. Come up here and say hi. Say hi, everybody. Say, my name is Teddy, in case you don't know me. And I'm Tim's buddy. Where you been? You go up and get something to eat? You don't want something to eat? He said we do ear kisses. He likes to have his ears scratched, and If I kiss his ears, he likes that too, I guess. Okay, that might be weird, but that's okay because, it's me and I don't care. Say, I'm a handsome young man, I am. He's he's a little bit, he's embarrassed now. So Carol called you Super Teddy. Did you know that? Well, he had to go down for a lick. You coming back up? You coming back? Is it time for second naps? He's real. His contract's real strict about his nap time. Yeah, he don't. Whoa, what? You're not going to take a nap right now? I bet you do in a minute. I bet you do in a minute. I bet. No, that's my boy. That's my boy. You lay back down now. He wants aggressive pets. He does, and sometimes he likes to, if it's in the right spot. Now, if it ain't in the right spot, he'll let me know quick. Like he's real particular about rubbing his belly, for example, his chest and belly. Sometimes he loves it, but if he don't want it, ask Brenda what happens. He'll grab a hold of he'll grab your hand with his front feet. He grabs kind of like hands. He locks those claws in, and then you're done for till he has administered the correct level of pain and injury. Isn't that right? Isn't that right? Yes, it is. Let me see. I know there was something else I wanted to bring up. I don't think this was it, but I do. It's always pops in my mind. This week had its fair share of. Hang on. Give me a minute. I'll be right back. I can talk a lot better if I find my nose spray. Okay, maybe it'll get better. Let's see here. Oh, this is another week when we had at least two devastating. I don't know what to call them. Mass fatalities, mass fatality issues. One in Idaho, one in Virginia. It's just I mean, we don't know the stories yet, but it doesn't matter what the story was. Taking lives is bad. Young lives is worse. I mean, to me, because they don't get a chance to even live. But we don't know what causes them, I guess. So it is sad, Mike, and it makes me sad. Sometimes it makes me angry. If you come to my Thursday night show, I've kind of tried to talk about it, dance around those issues a little bit, and try to figure out a way to openly discuss some of that. But it's hard to talk about either way. Yeah, I can only imagine they did, Carol. The Idaho one is just, to me, more baffling than the other one, although it could turn out to be similar problems. But the football deal, I think could turn out to be a hazing issue. I mean, I don't know that. I'm just saying that. I have no idea, but football players, ex-football team member, maybe he didn't make the team. Maybe something else led to it. Obviously, there's more to it than that. That's just a simple answer or comment, and it really doesn't mean anything because I don't know that. But it's possible. On the other end of the country, again, I'd hate to think that had anything to do with hazing, but you just never know. And I guess we'll eventually figure out if the two young ladies that survived the attack, so to speak, did the person that killed the other four just not realize they were there, or did they intentionally avoid them, or were they part of it? I mean, there's no way to know. No, Mike, there's not, and that's what I guess that's what I'm trying to say. It doesn't matter what was going on. It doesn't matter how bad the reason. There should be a different way to handle it. That's not the way to do it. And if I was in Carol's shoes, I'd probably be the same way. I would probably be concerned about my child being away at college someplace where, I mean, for all we know, the four young people who were killed in Idaho were just out doing the kind of things college students do. I mean, I don't remember if it was a Friday or Saturday night now, but I mean, it could have been after a football game. It could have been just out doing what kids do at that age. I mean, I don't know if I can't speak for everyone here, but I mean, most of us have probably gone through a somewhat of a similar time in our lives where we wanted to get out and sow a few wild oats. Even if it wasn't too wild, we still might have stayed up, late at night. And so I don't look at that. Once upon a time, people would have looked at that alone and said, "Oh, no good, no good. Nothing good happens after midnight, or nothing good happens after 8:30 at night." That's when the sidewalks roll up. So I went to the University of Idaho for a year. So, Ian, which school were they at? Were they at the same university? Were they at University of Idaho, or were they was it a different school up there? Yeah, they do, Carol, and that's really a shame. I mean, and don't take me wrong, this wouldn't be good either, but there was a time when some of this kind of thing was basically settled with a fight between boys or girls, and okay, they were from the university. I thought they were, but I wasn't sure if it was Idaho State, or I just wanted to clear that up. But yeah, Carol, I mean, there should be a better way to do this. And I know this isn't a popular idea, and it won't never happen again, probably. But there was a time when if it was two guys had a dispute, they'd take them to the gym, put boxing gloves on them, and just let them duke it out. And more times than not, that got settled, and they shook hands and kind of went their separate ways. But How big a town is Moscow, or whatever, ever how they pronounce it in? Do you know? I mean, I could look it up, but um, I mean, and the thing about it to me is, if I had a student there, I mean, it would worry me. I mean, because it doesn't matter the scenario. Once something like this happens, as a parent, if you really, if it really eats you up and it really gets to you to the point where you can't go above it or beyond it, everything they do is going to look threatening. I mean, just going to get something to eat, going down to McDonald's late at night to get, the drive-through, or hanging out with their friends at the coffee shop. I mean, it doesn't have to be a bar. About 30K. That's about what I thought. Oh, okay. I didn't realize Pullman was bigger. We had a friend that went up there too to school. He was from back here. And as far as I know, he had taken up roots out there in that area, at least. I'm not sure exactly where he lives now, but it's sad. I mean, it's just what's really sad. And I hope well, there's two things here that could be really sad, and maybe are already. But one is, it's sad that chances are we'll wake up before the weekend's over and something else will have happened. Um, and I hate to say that because that sounds horrible and pessimistic and all kinds of things that I don't really want to be, but lately it just seems that way. And what was the other thing I was going to say that was really sad about that? Oh, and the worst thing I think can happen, and may happen already to some degree, is we get used to it. The fact that we get accustomed to it and sit in that pot of water like a frog until it's too late to get out. And I don't know, that'd be a sad. It's just, again, it's sad all the way around. And it's really something that, and I'm going to say this, and again, I don't mean to drag my Saturday morning chat down. That's not my point here, usually. Is that this is another case. Some people will use this as an argument that, see, not all murders are caused by guns. This guy used a knife. Well, that doesn't help as far as I'm concerned. And it really goes back to what a lot of us have talked about being part of the problem, and that's mental health in this country and where we're at with it or not at with it. And the fact that most of these shootings that have happened across the country might have been prevented if there had been more controls, or at least some kind of effort made to police that. If someone was buying a handgun, but the same thing kind of goes to the knife. I mean, not that we're going to be able, not that I think we should be registering every knife we buy or try to do that kind of control, but if that person needed help and could have gotten it somehow, maybe it could have been prevented. Yeah, that's part of my worry, Ian, that we will get to the point where we don't pay attention, that we're just numb to it, and oh yeah, it's just another headline. And I also realize that the news media in general, runs these things up the flagpole to see what kind of attention it gets, and to increase their readership or viewership and all that kind of stuff to some degree. But I do think some of them have good intentions from a personal or a public safety concerns. But I don't know. Mike, it's up to you. You can say what you want. Like I said, this is not where I've been doing that. But I'm not, but we're just talking. So, um, you're welcome to say whatever you want to. My chats are open and free of ridicule, and we're not going to fight in here. So, if anybody takes too harsh an objection, I'm gonna kick them out. So, even if it's me. Well, you got a point there, Mike. Good or bad, they probably do. Because one thing's for sure down here, most of the elected officials in this country do not want to touch these things because they're poison at the ballot box. They think, at least from certain constituents that they feel like they should support, which is also a shame, I think. Let me see here. Speaking of Thursday nights, I'm going to hope to be on this Thursday night, and I want to apologize to any of my Thursday night viewers, normal ones, that I wasn't on Thursday, and I forgot to post a note saying I wouldn't be on. I started to, but I just didn't feel like I was feeling up to it. I have a topic. I've got it kind of outlined already. I had it ready the other night, and I just didn't get up to do it in time or get going. And I meant to take that one weekend off, or 1 week day off, but I will be here this week. Let me see if I've got it up here handy. I don't know if I do or not. I have a lot of my stuff on in Word documents that I can grab at a moment's notice. Blah, blah, blah. And this is looking bad because this kind of reminds me of what it looked like when I was working on this yesterday, not yesterday, but a couple days ago. Because I did some cutting and pasting, and now I don't see I've created a new document, I thought. Bear with me just a moment. Well, shoot. Well, maybe I don't have it, and maybe I lost it. Dang it, I had a bunch of stuff written down too. I guess I had part of it here. Very interesting. The idea came from something else I'd listened to or watched or read about. I'm not sure which the other night, but let me see if I can say this correctly. If you're just I guess a heads up, or if you want to think about it between now and then. But what I was I heard somebody discuss. Oh, gee, let me think. How did they put that? And basically, it boiled down to this: if we can't talk about it, we're never going to get past it. and it wasn't race relations in this case, but the same thing can be said. Um, well, anyway, rather than make upset people and get people started or fired up or something, we avoid topics. We intentionally avoid talking about history or our past or certain things that are hurtful in their own right, but may never heal if we don't yank the bandage off and get some air to it and talk about it enough that we understand it. And that goes for more than just race relations, but that's why I can't remember what the subject was about now. But as soon as I heard it, I started jotting down notes and trying to remember things that and write down related things. And now I'm really mad because I'm not finding what I wrote down. I do know what it was. It was about anti-Semitism and some of the things that have come out this year about anti-Semitism and have been said out loud in some of the Jewish communities has come forward to talk about, if we don't ever talk about this, we're not ever going to heal from it. And to think it's all gone away because, World War II's over and all that terrible stuff happened, and surely that can never happen again. And then you got people in our society today doing things about anti-Semitism and anti-Semitic movies, and without mentioning any names, Kanye. But this guy's point, and he was Jewish, was that the problem is that if we don't talk about it, we're never going to be able to get past it as a nation, as a society, as a people. And because we're never going to be able to truly assimilate or join as one until we can kind of get past some of those issues. And the same thing goes for slavery and a lot of other things I can think of. But so that was part of what I was wanting to talk about. And maybe between now and this Thursday, I can find what I had written down. But I've got notes somewhere. Some other things I put down about what I talked about a little bit last week, and let's just not, let's just not. Don't feed your anger on some of these issues and these people who spew it. Just if you take away you'd have to take away their power, and that's how you do it. Anyway, I won't keep dragging that down. I think it's about 11:30, and obviously I'm probably wasting your time more than anything worthwhile. I hope so, Diana. I'm hoping hopefully I'll pull those thoughts back together, and I'll remember what I was going to say, and go from there. But anyway, I think I'm going to close down. I'm going to stretch out, let my backside ease, relax a little bit, not hurt for a while. And let's see, now I can breathe so I can talk better. And look forward to next week. Mark will probably be back next week unless he's going to be out of town again. But if he's well, he should be here. And hopefully we'll be, everybody will feel good. And, between now and then and Thursday night we'll be here. But next Saturday will be another hopefully more interesting discussion than today. I'll find something else to bring about. I'm always open for topics of discussion too, guys. Please feel free to, send me a note. Well, thank you, Carol. I appreciate that. Carol, one more. I have to ask the question before you leave. Who is Michigan playing today? Are they playing that team from the South? I heard that's what they call the Ohio State now, is that team from the South. And I think Ohio State says that team in the North. Tennessee plays tonight at South Carolina, who they should beat, and I hope they do. If they can win out, they'll at least have some shot at going to the championship series, I think. Oh, next week is Ohio State. Okay. I wasn't sure if that was this week or not. I don't know. I guess next week will probably be the Egg Bowl, too. That'll be a big game, although, well, I don't know. That might actually be a pretty good game this year since Alabama's lost a couple. Auburn not been very good, but we will see. We have South Carolina and Vanderbilt left, so we'll see how that goes. And they're both away games, but I don't think they play tonight till about 6. So I'll be watching somebody else play this afternoon. Anyway, guys, thank you for being here. I love each and every one of you, and I appreciate you showing up. I hope everybody stays well this week or well next weekend. Hopefully, I'm going to suggest you get your vaccination shots if you believe in them. If you don't, then that's up to you. But be safe and take care. And if the good Lord's willing and the creek don't rise, we'll be back here again next week. Thanks, everybody.